What up, gang? These are prison stories by prison writers, and this is a story by Jerry Metcalf. Dear Supreme Court Judge Bridget McCormick, I approach humbly, head bowed, pride checked at the door. Back in 1995, I shot and killed a man, a crime for which I am truly and deeply sorry. I was then tried and found not guilty for first-degree murder, but guilty to second-degree murder. At sentencing, my judge checked the OV3 box for premeditated/intent to kill and added 50 points to my offense variable score, hiking my guidelines through the roof. She then used those higher guidelines to sentence me to the overly long 40 to 60 years behind bars. My original appellate attorney did not raise my judge's use of acquitted conduct at sentencing as a due process violation. But in 2006, I hired James C. Thomas out of Detroit, and he raised the issue by filing a 6.500 motion, and then later on by filing appeals to both the appeals court and the Michigan Supreme Court. The issue failed. My question to you, Your Honor, is simple. How is it that in 2006, my rationale was rejected when I was asserted that my judge's use of acquitted conduct while sentencing me was a due process violation? But in 2019, when People versus Beck, asserted the same exact due process violation, citing the same cases in the same fashion, his rationale was accepted. What changed in those 13 intervening years? Did the Constitution change? How can it be unconstitutional now, post-2019, to use acquitted conduct as sentencing, yet constitutional to do so 13 years ago? Furthermore, how come I, who already raised the issue, can be told that I'm barred from re-raising the issue simply because 13 years have passed? Doesn't this scenario seem a bit insane? My judge punished me for a crime I was acquitted of, sentencing me to an extra 20 years in prison. Yet, if my judge attempted to do the same thing in her courtroom today, she would be barred from doing so because that act has now been declared unconstitutional. In your Beck opinion stated, this ends here, and it did, for future generations. But for those of us sentenced for crimes we were acquitted of prior to People versus Beck, the nightmare continues. So I humbly ask you, Your Honor, is this justice? Should I spend an extra 20 years of life in prison simply because the Supreme Court back in 2006 was more conservative and held different views than you do? To me, this reeks of politics, not the law or justice. Like you, I believe the idea of punishing someone for a crime they've been acquitted of is unconstitutional and judicially repugnant. So, following that logic, shouldn't it also be unconstitutional and judicially repugnant to keep me, a man who was sentenced for a crime he was acquitted of, in prison for an extra 20 years simply because I filed my appeal 13 years too early? It seems to me that if anything, I was ahead of the curve on what was just and right, constitutional or unconstitutional. Thank you for your time, Your Honor, and thank you for all your hard work and dedication to equality and justice.